Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Death Space Filling the Void. Jamie, Ollie, and I are back here in Charleston, South Carolina after visiting some family up in New York, some friends. We did a beach weekend out in Montauk, which is a beach at the end of Long Island. Just incredible. Eating seafood, laying on the beach, seeing friends. Oh my gosh. It's amazing how much a little vacation can help you reset your thinking, get out of things that are stressing you, or get away from them for a little bit. And it also gives you the perspective to step outside of your processes. With, I'm working full time and working on 2 podcasts. Just trying to step outside of that process and make the podcast better and ways for me to juggle it, everything I want to do a little bit better. So yeah, just amazing. Not to mention how being vaccinated and now seeing people, it's just so much less stressful. Oh my gosh. Throughout most of the pandemic, when you would see somebody in a backyard or you're just nervous going to the grocery store or getting gas or doctor's visits. It's just, everything was a lot. You didn't realize how high, at least my level of stress was over little things. Do I have the virus? Am I going to give it to somebody? Am I being selfish by seeing a friend in a backyard? It's just nice to remove that or vaccinate that anxiety away. Well, yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling rested and ready to get back to Charleston and doing some fun stuff down here. For today's episode, we have my friend Mike Sause. Mike is an incredibly hilarious comedian and actor. He was doing a show called Drunk Shakespeare, an off-Broadway show, which was hilarious. I'm not sure if they're going back to it now that the world's going back to normal. He's a huge Cincinnati sports fan. God bless him. And he's an extremely talented improviser. We did a bunch of improv shows with him, including one show called Sauce and Jones that was arguably the most bizarre thing I've ever put on a stage. You'll hear us talk about it. But Mike lost his mother right around the time where college was ending for him, and he was going off on his own. Still a young man. It's amazing how much that loss shaped his future. Of course, not looking for his mother to die, but that propelled him to taking different steps in his life. A lot of people in this podcast have talked about how loss and grief has transformed them in many ways. And Mike is an incredible example of that. Mike also hit me with an incredible quote that I wasn't expecting, and I still think about. I don't want to spoil it because you can pretty much hear me experience the quote in real time in the episode. Real quick before we get to the interview, if you're liking the show, please remember to rate and review it, and to also check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube. And YouTube. I don't know why I say or. And. Let's get over to Mr. Michael Sause. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy. Now joining me, I have actor Mike Sause. We used to do 2 improv together under the name Sauce and Jones, and probably one of the strangest shows I ever did in my improv career. Mike, thanks so much for coming on to talk to me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And ditto on the weirdest improv show. Legit, the only improv show where I've woken up the next morning aching because of the wrestling that we did.
Right. For people who don't know, there was quite a bit of wrestling. The premise of the show was like there was a wig that we both wanted to wear because it was a metaphor for success in like acting and showmanship. And that's how we would transition in and out of scenes. But it would devolve into just an all-out wrestling match. Yeah, seriously. We're here to talk about the loss of your mom. I was wondering if you can tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, my mom was born in 1959. She was a nurse. Before she died, she was a certified occupational health nurse, registered nurse at the Ford Motor Company truck transmission plant in Sharonville, Ohio, which is just outside of Cincinnati. And she had been with Ford for, I don't know exactly how long, but it was definitely like 10 years or something like that. And she had also been their union rep for the nurses for a few years.
Does Ford employ a lot of nurses?
Not a ton. I mean, there were maybe like 6 nurses, a couple per shift. But, when it's, you're a factory plant, so, you got guys coming in who just accidentally cut themselves or cut something off. Or
right.
She had a guy one night came into the nurse's station and just collapsed of a heart attack.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just you can imagine. Like, I mean, it's definitely interesting. She had previously before that been like a nurse for different businesses or urgent care centers and stuff like that and hospitals. But once she fell in with Ford, it was like her main thing.
That was her spot.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very interesting job. A lot of nothing until there's certainly something, right? Like just a heaviness to it.
Yeah. And she would work, usually she was working like second or third shift. I think she was second shift normally, because like I would get home from school and then that's when she was leaving for work, usually when I was in my teenage years. A lot of my personality and who I am comes from my mom. My mom, when she was growing up, did a little bit of drama club and stuff like that. So like performing gene is definitely from her, being a Cincinnati sports guy.
Sure
like,
do.
Literally
yes.
that all comes from my mom growing up. Like she's the one who taught me how to throw a baseball. She's the one who taught me how to keep score at a baseball game, which I can't go to a baseball game without keeping score.
You're the program guy.
Yeah, I'll get my scorecard out and make sure I have a pencil, not a pen. I get real upset about double switches. But yeah, so she was very foundational in terms of who I was. Another thing she did, she was our Boy Scout, not Boy Scouts, but Cub Scout pack leader. So she was like in charge of the whole.
Oh, fun.
The whole pack for the grade school Cub Scouts that I was a part of. Did that for 2 or 3 years. But yeah, she's a very active mom. Before she passed, a few years before she passed, she had herniated some discs in her back and had to get different surgeries, and she was in constant just pain. She used to
that's awful.
we used to always joke like you could open up her bag and it was like a Walgreens inside of my mom's purse. Like any drug she had, before it was like a novel thing. She's like, she had prescriptions for Percocet, OxyContin, like all the like drugs that like are now, we know all about them. She was right at the beginning of that kind of stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Just because she was just in this like chronic pain. But yeah, she's just a very active, very involved mom.
That's wonderful. Yeah, back pain in particular just can be so debilitating. It's just, you don't never know what's going to set it off, and when it does, it is just it is just the worst. So I want to. How old were you when she passed away?
I was 22. It was the fall after I graduated from college.
Okay.
Yeah, she was 50, which for the immediate time after she passed, like that was probably the thing I was most upset about, because growing up, I had 3 of my 4 grandparents until I was like into college. My dad's father passed away before I was even born. I never met him, but his mother lived until I was like 24. Both my grandparents lived until I was like 19, 20. And they were all in their, if not 80, then like 78. My grandparents were pretty old. So like, I just, you just growing up, when you have grandparents that last for a while, you just kind of assume that your parents are going to last a while. And so that was probably the thing I was most upset about right at the beginning, was just that the things that I was robbed of that I wasn't going to experience, that I figured I would. I figured my mom would be at my wedding, that she would meet, the person that I marry, that she would, if I had kids, that she always joked that she'd be just the grandmother from hell because of how we treated her as kids or whatever.
Right. You're going to get one just like you.
Exactly. And yeah, and that was the big thing, because ironically, like, she kind of passed away similar in age, in terms of my age was similar when my dad's father passed away. So I got to talk to my dad about that, and she passed away. What's that?
How did she die?
So so in October of 2009, let's back up a little bit. August 2009, my uncle, her only brother, passed away. He died of a massive heart attack that August, and they found him because he lived next door to my mom, and his friend hadn't heard from him for a few days, and we hadn't heard from him a few days, and then they found out that he had passed away next door.
Awful.
And so after that, she'd been very depressed and stuff like that. But into September of 2000 of that year, the next month, she was starting to come out of that grief and feeling much better. She was talking about possibly going into teaching, going to get her master's in nursing to become a teacher, or get her possibly like a nurse practitioner type of thing. But she was definitely talking about doing something else. And then in October 2009, the next month, one day, my brother came home from doing something, my middle brother, Steve, and he came home, and my mom was like crawling from her chair to the bathroom. And so he called an ambulance because she could barely breathe. She went to the hospital. They immediately put her in the ICU because she was having severe trouble breathing. She was basically diagnosed with pneumonia, but they didn't know if it was viral or bacterial, so they were kind of treating for both. And then while she was in the ICU, things just kept getting worse and worse. They kept trying to like up her oxygen levels, because that was the main thing, was that her oxygen levels were going down. And they had her on a ventilator. They had her in this thing called a roto bed, which is, just imagine a bed where you're just like strapped to it, but then the bed itself is suspended, and so you're lying face down, but the bed's behind you.
Okay.
And it like rotates back and forth to move the liquid that's in your lungs so that you can try to
Never heard of that.
Oxygen.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, the first time I saw it, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And it's enough to see to see anybody on a ventilator. Like, ventilators are like just hearing something breathing for somebody and seeing someone breathing, and it's not them, it's all labored, and it's the worst.
It's mechanical looking too.
Yeah.
In that, like,
and you can hear it, and especially when like you've got pneumonia too, where there's like all this like liquid in the lungs, and you can hear the like gargling from the breath. It's terrible. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And basically within like a month of her getting into the ICU, she had passed away November 14th, 2009. And they also talked about that she had it was like during the swine flu thing too. So they didn't know if that also was playing a factor. It didn't help that she previously was a smoker. She had given it up like the year before, a couple of years before, but it's hard to get all of that stuff out of your lungs after 20, 30 years of smoking.
Exactly.
Because she had there have been times where she would like quit for a few years and then come back and blah blah. But
it seems like there was like a little bit of like uncertainty, like a combination. It's like pneumonia, but also like could be swine flu, and maybe she wasn't taking care of herself because she was not feeling herself. And wow, that's a lot of different things to take on. What was that month like when she was in the hospital?
Well, it was tough because I at the time was working for a company called Vector Marketing, which does Cutco knives, if you've ever heard of them.
Oh yeah.
So I at the time was a district manager. So I had sold Cutco in college and stuff, and then I became assistant manager, and then worked my way up. And I was running my own office. I was running the Lexington, Kentucky office right after I graduated. And so running an office like that, there's really no time you're off. I was putting in 80, 90-hour work weeks.
Why is that? Just
because because basically you're running your own business. Like there is a corporate structure above you. Like they're the ones who get you the sample kits for your recruits. They're the ones who handle the orders and ship the product to the customers. But in general, like you're the one who has to pay your office lease. You're the one who has to pay your receptionist and
like a franchise.
all that stuff. Yeah. So like literally I'd get up, go to the office, be in there at 8 a.m. most days. And I wouldn't leave until like probably 9 o'clock.
Oh my God.
That's like Monday through Friday. And then like weekends was a little bit better, but like in general, you're still putting in and then you're also always available via your phone for representatives who just finished the appointment and they need to let you know what happened, if they sold anything, if they didn't sell anything, so you can keep track of that. So it was a lot. And so like that summer I'd done really well. We had a very successful office. I was very excited, feeling good about everything. And then like once my uncle passed away, I went home for like a week, and then this fall didn't start off that great. And so that month of my mom being in the hospital, like I would be up there for a few days. Like Cincinnati's only like 60, 70 miles north of Lexington. So I was definitely able to get back and forth.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to fully spend X amount of nights in the hospital with her out. The last thing I remember us doing together where she was at all cognizant is we watched the Bengals play the Bears, and I think they won like 38-3 or something like that. And it was funny because it was the first game that the 2009 season where the game didn't come down to like the last drive. Every game we had won before that was like, oh my God, are they going to win? And this one, we just did not demolish them. And so I joked with my mom before she like went to bed or whatever, or fell asleep, that they knew she was in the hospital and they wanted to go easy.
Yeah. Just the win that everybody needed.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the last time I saw her cognizant or conscious.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people put, especially since when I've been talking to a lot of people about their final interactions with whomever, and I've been learning and kind of knew this before, that people put so much heaviness into a final interaction. It seems like that's kind of a sweet moment.
It was.
Yeah.
I was a little upset because later, after she was in the ICU, like eventually it was like we kind of had to make the call. There's XYZ days of no activity and different things like that, and we basically had to make the call of like, are we gonna try to keep her in this like coma thing forever, or do we want to put her in hospice? And we eventually made the decision about hospice. And so the day that hospice called us in the morning to let us know that it was like time, we went over and we each had our own moment with my mom. And that it's hearing the ventilator is scary.
Mm-hmm.
But hospice, God bless hospice workers. I don't know how they do it. It's very interesting. But like when you're off the ventilator and now like she is breathing for herself because it's just her body's natural thing. Now all you're hearing is the rattle and the like, it's a sound that I frankly would never like to hear again. A ventilator is mechanical and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, it doesn't sound like death. This was like, they say it's like
making its
rattle.
presence known.
Yeah, and it's like you can hear it in the breathing, and you just kind of you feel bad for feeling it, but you're just kind of like, just let it end. And so each of the brothers and my dad and my mom's friends, her like close friends, went into the hospice. We each took some time just by ourselves with mom, just to say goodbye. And then it was clear it was still taking a while, so we're all like super on edge, but also like to take a little bit of not take the edge off, but to just help cope and help normalize things. I volunteered to go get us some food. So I went to McDonald's and I took my brother Tim. He was the youngest. He was 2009, 93. He was 16 at the time.
Oh, that's so young.
Yeah. And so I took him out and we went and got McDonald's, and came back. And when we came back, my mom's best friend Lona was like, it happened. She's gone. And I was viscerally like angry that I wasn't there for like the final moment. And then
why do you think you were angry?
I don't know. I think it was just the idea of I was there with her at the beginning of my life and I was there at the end of hers. But I quickly realized that it didn't really matter. And we call her Aunt Lona because she's like my mom. Like her and my mom were inseparable since high school. She kind of said that my mom went while we were gone because she wanted the youngest Tim to be able to not be there or something like that. So that was not cute, but like, kind of comforting, like idea. And I got over it very quickly. I was like, this is stupid to be angry about. Like my mom's dead. Like that's far more important.
The focus than, right.
But
yeah, I can only imagine. So what changes? I'm lucky to still have both my parents. What changes in a 22-year-old who just lost his mother?
For me particularly, it was a full sense of rudderlessness.
She was your guiding light.
Yeah, for 100%. Because like I said before, like a lot of who I am is a direct byproduct of things that she taught with me and focused on with me, and that kind of bond. So once that was gone, it was everything fell to pieces. Like I wasn't homeless or I wasn't in a bad way, but I mean, for instance, like we talked about my business, I had to borrow tons of money from my boss to let the business stay afloat until summer, because summer's when you make most of your money, since we work with a lot of college students over the summer. So it's just like stay afloat until the summer, And then summer came and we did half the business we did the summer before. I just wasn't happy. I just, for a while after that, it was just like every day was like something would remind me, and then I would have to stop and like have a cry.
Yeah. Let out the steam.
Yeah. And like I'd had like my grandparents died, but it's like, when someone's in their 70s, like you expect it, I feel like you kind of guard your heart for it, you kind of prepare for it. But when it's somebody that you expect to have for another 20 years or another 30 years, it does that number on you. And so I was super not focused. I didn't really care. I tried to care about my business, but I just lost all sort of motivation, especially that next summer when shit started to hit the fan. And so
what were people in your circle saying to you during this time period?
They were definitely helping me. I had friends come down from Cincinnati to visit for a few weekends and go out and take care of me. I had like one of my best friends, he and his family were very close to my family, so he came down pretty frequently. And in general, I definitely was becoming closer to my dad, because growing up, like I said, I mean, I'm very much my mother's son. My father and I are pretty different, but not totally different. He's much more like, for lack of a better term, he's like a computer geek nerd, and that's just not who I am. But we kind of bonded over that, and we definitely had a closer relationship because there wasn't that person that I would talk to as much. So we were definitely talking more. My brothers and I were leaning on each other more than we had before. It was definitely harder because I wasn't in the space of my family, but I was definitely, not only were people coming down, I was coming up. I think for the first like few months, like I was going up to Cincinnati almost every weekend for the first few months. Cause like I would literally get done with training. Like the end of training for the new recruits is on a Saturday. And that usually ends around like 2:00, 3:00. Like the second that would get out, I would just hop on I-75 and go straight to Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have friends in Lexington for the first few years, or for the first few months I was there. So I didn't have anybody like locally that I could really go to. So I was in Cincinnati a lot.
For just the gravity of going back to your family, like the pull is so even if you did have friends, like 60 miles is doable to get there.
Are your Excel skills optimized for your current job? I read that there's a lot of people quitting their jobs. It feels like there's a lot of people that may have lost their jobs or used the pandemic shift as a chance to try something new. And I love that. Really rooting for people. Do you know the basics but would like to learn more? Because this is a transformative time. My mind keeps shifting back to this. That we can kind of make things different and better. Talk about the transformative nature of death and grief. Pandemic was a good reminder that life is limited and we should seek happiness. Do something that you're gonna enjoy. You're gonna get out of bed and not be bummed that you gotta go to work. And tools like My Software Tutor can definitely help with that. Maybe you're a skill or two away. My Software Tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They all deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly, supportive environment. I mean, how expensive is college? Just, instead of loading up on some courses that you don't need, this is just going to teach you exactly the program that you want or you need. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. I mean, just the nature of describing that you're going out there and learning the things that you need to learn, the programs, or just sharpening your skills is appealing to people looking to hire you. I mean, who wants to hire the person that's like, I learned everything 20 years ago and I refuse to learn anything else. I don't know why this character sounds like this. Well, you can register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. Today's episode is also brought to you by The Cardist. A card delivers joy and connection, but it's hard to muster that positive energy in this pandemic. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I was talking about with just the layer of anxiety that we've been dealing with, just pushing us down. It's just like walking around holding a boulder on each shoulder. And so it's tough to create. It's tough to emote. It's tough to build connection with people. But that's what the Cardist is here for. Introducing a writing specialist for the message inside your greeting cards. The Cardist Studio creates your message, writes it in the card, and mails it for you. We've all got boulders on our shoulders. Oh God, I hate that it rhymes. But, it's nice to have the sentiment that you want to send someone something nice, and you get a little help. Nothing wrong with that. All you do is pick the card and tell why you're sending it. No errands, no emotional exercise, or real exercise. For a message from your heart, but not your hands. Sit back and just enjoy your relationships. TheCardistStudio.com. Thoughtful just got easy.
You had stopped caring about your business, and obviously you ended up moving to New York. So
yeah,
I'm wondering what happened.
So at the end of that summer, we did less than half the business we had done the previous summer. Not only that, it was business that we had this one guy who'd been selling Cutco since the 80s. His sales don't matter as much to my report as others say, whatever. But I made not enough money. But then after that summer, I literally saw an ad. I don't remember where. don't know if it was Facebook or I don't remember where, but I saw there was an improv troupe in Lexington. And I was like, oh, I really like doing improv at Xavier. That was fun. And so I went out and did improv, and like I auditioned for them, and I got into that. And
Oh, nice.
that gave me this like outlet to like,
It lit a fire in you.
yeah, because like the whole time with Cutco, the main part of the job is running interviews in like a group setting to get new representatives or whatever. And the one part of the job that I liked more than any part was the training, because I could be more of myself and I could perform more. Like there was like literally like, you know, one part of the training where like you learn how to call people to set up your first appointments. I would do in different voices, because like I have always done impressions.
Why not?
So like I would do Christopher Walken calling somebody to get a Cutco appointment.
Do you still have that? Do you have that in you?
Oh, of course.
You don't have to.
No, I mean, listen, Mrs. Jones, a lot of people, you know, I mean, I do impressions now. I've been paid to do impressions, so that's not bad. But
no, that's great.
Yeah, so like that was like my the tiniest outlet I had to the things that like tied me to my mom and that tied me to performance and stuff like that. So I was like, once I found improv, I was like, oh fuck, that's right. This is the thing that actually makes me enjoy life. And so I was doing shows with them, and then I met like a lady through their troupe who did like murder mystery dinner theater. So I did a few shows with her, and that fall things were meh. But then like that spring stuff had started to kick back up, and I was like hitting different bonus levels and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, if I'm going to leave, because I was starting to eye leaving it, because I was still not making good money. I was now paying off the debts that I had accrued before that. And so then,
and improv's going well at this point.
It was going well. Like I literally, like, I mean, it's not like it was paying a bunch, but hey, it paid more than most of my gigs in New York City.
Yeah, I was gonna say improv and like, a lot of money. No, I don't know.
Literally, like we had our first show at this bar in downtown Lexington, and like my dad and brothers came, and like we had like, I don't know, like 20 to 30 people in the audience. And at the end of the night, the main guy who runs the team comes up to me with an envelope, and he goes, "Here's your cut." I go, "What?
What now?
We get paid for this?" He's like, "Yeah, we charge money for people to watch the show in the area, and we get a cut of the bar proceeds or whatever."
That's great.
So it was like $18 or something.
Hey.
And I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "I'm a professional improviser." And then I went to New York and became a amateur, even though I've got more experience in New York.
Right.
But so like that like excited me again. And that spring when things were starting to go well again, and I basically could have like stayed with it and probably things would go a little bit better. But I was like, what if I just take this like bonus money and like that's my like exit out, so I can like leave on a good note. And I had friends, like my best friend from college, he was still living in Cincinnati, and he and his current roommate, who was another guy that we had done theater with in college, him and that guy's boyfriend, they were planning on moving to New York, and because he was going to go to acting school and the other one's a nurse, so he can get a job anywhere.
Right.
And so they're like, "We're going to go to New York. Would you like," and he just kind of put a flyer out there of like, "You should come." And I was like, fuck yeah. And I decided that I was done with Cutco and that I would just move to the city with these 3 other guys. And that's what got me here. And so like, it's interesting to me when I think back on it, because on the one hand, it absolutely sucks that my mom died. To this day, it's still something that I would say it's purely, it still defines me to this day. It's not that like it's the only thing that defines me, but like.
But in what way does it define you?
I think that it just defines me as like, I know that I need that how I carry myself. Like I know that I'm supposed that, growing up that you're supposed to be a good representation of your parents and your upbringing. But I think that by doing work in New York and by focusing on performance and focusing on the biggest things that she encouraged me on, that's kind of my way of keeping her memory alive. Because like, if I make a joke, like if I'm doing an improv show or I'm doing Drunk Shakespeare and I make like a very like, or I'm with my friends and I make a very specific dark joke, I know that like that like sense of humor, and a lot of my sense of humor, regardless of dark humor or not, all comes from her. And so when people laugh at me being a fool, there's this extra little thing for me. It's like, it's kind of just I am doing that as a homage to her memory and
that's wonderful.
who she was. Yeah.
Wow. And you were saying it's obviously unfortunate your mom passed away,
right?
But in a sense, I'm trying to help you pick up.
But oddly, without it, I don't know if I am performing.
Wow.
I don't know if I would have taken that line. If it doesn't happen, who's to say that things with Cutco don't go better? I know it's not a lot. I mean, most of the people that I started with as a manager are out of the company, but there's a handful of people that keep continuing or continue for a number of years, or, who says like that would have went well. And then, maybe I go to some other company where I do sales or exec or like product training or any sort of like thing that isn't performing. I don't know if I'd be here in New York right now, like literally sitting, like there's times when I'm like cooking dinner I'm cooking, like my girlfriend's vegetarian. A couple of times during quarantine, I've been cooking a meal that I've never made before that is fully vegetarian. And then I'll have this like little moment of, I'm in New York cooking a vegetarian meal for my vegetarian girlfriend. If you would have told me that when I was 18, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. Like, number one, I'd been to New York once and I hated it when I came here.
Oh no.
And it was mostly because I was only in Times Square. And
right.
Like, it's the worst place on
That's
earth.
Most people that only come here experience that.
Exactly. And like growing up, I always, vegetarians are so pretentious and all this stuff. Like, and now like half my diet is a vegetarian diet. So
nice.
It's ironic to me in the extreme that for my life to be where it is now, that a big catalyst in that is the death of somebody close to me.
It's so heavy to think that it's almost like, and this is completely from an outside perspective, it's almost like you had this like well-preserved sense of self and like a part is broken and like
right.
That's caused this journey to put the performing part back to you. Wow.
Yeah, for sure.
That's incredible. That really is. Well, you're obviously so like talented and funny, and so it's definitely good that you're here and wound up here. So things are looking up for Mike Sause. I want to get into a little bit about spirituality and what you think about spirituality, where we go when we die, really anything. There's really no wrong answer to jump into that. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, I grew up, my family were barely Christmas, Easter Catholics. If we got to Mass on, like, we used to like pretty much only be Christmas, Easter Catholics. And then at some point, there was one year, I think, where we went to Christmas Mass and we went to the normal time that Mass was. But then we found out once we got there for Mass that the parking lot was full. And we were like, oh, but we're 15 minutes early. And we get in and I see my 6th grade teacher come back with all of the Eucharist that was left over or whatever. And like, as we're walking in, she looks at me and I was like, oh no, apparently Mass had started like an hour before that. Because to like get rid of Christmas, Easter Catholics, they didn't publicize that there was a change of the Mass time. You had to go to Mass like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Oh my God.
Know. So I was mortified because Mrs. Murtaugh saw us come in, and I went to the Catholic grade school too. So it was like I knew I'd just get these like evil eyes. But so like that's definitely just in the back of my mind a lot, is the Catholic tradition and stuff like that. I think I believe there's some sort of higher power. I occasionally pray to it. I'm more likely to have a conversation with my mom than I am God. Occasionally, if I'm having struggles, or if I just am feeling really good, or I want to, because that's,
You're still sharing your life with her.
yeah, right after your parents die, the thing that just guaranteed, like, I mean, I tear up just thinking about it, is the first few times when something happens, doesn't matter whether it's a good thing in your life, or like some achievement, or you just saw something funny on TV, or a video on Twitter, or the tight end for the Bengals just tore his ACL. Like, there's those little things that like your first instinct is, oh my gosh, I got to tell mom about that.
Yeah.
And you like reach for your phone, and you have to be like, you stupid, your mom can't answer a phone. And then that just triggers just this instant grief and waterworks and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And why I think I do it semi-frequently, just to have that dialogue. We used to joke at our grandmother on my mom's side, her and her husband, or my grandfather, had a pool in their backyard, in-ground pool, and we would go there during the summer when we were kids almost every day to swim. And
yeah, that sounds amazing.
It was so great. And so when my grandmother passed away, there were always like dragonflies coming by the pool a lot. And so when my grandmother passed away, when we would see a dragonfly, my mom would say, oh, that's grandma. And then when grandpa passed away, suddenly we would start to see 2 dragonflies together. And it was like, okay, like, and then my grandfather, or then my uncle passed away, and we'd see 3. And it was just like these weird, it's probably completely coincidental, that little thing. And then like literally one day we were at the pool, like after my mama died, and we saw 4 dragonflies. And like that to me, like I was just like, it's like there's never 4 of them here.
That seems like a lot of dragonflies.
Yeah. And so like it's interesting, like when I see a dragonfly now, I just assume it's silly and not dumb, but it's just silly. But I just call that dragonfly mom. Sharia and I, my girlfriend, we were in New Orleans for a vacation for a week last year, and we took like one of those like swamp rides to go see alligators.
Oh, fun.
There was a dragonfly that while we were on the boat, like going down through the bayou or whatever, this dragonfly comes and sits like right next to me and my girlfriend on the side of the boat. And then it just sits there for the next like 5 minutes. And so like I showed it to my girlfriend. I was like, oh, there's mom. And that's like a little like silly thing that we do. I like to think that reincarnation is a thing, just because I don't like thinking that this is the only thing. But even though I probably feel like it is the only thing that we get, but I think the most comforting things to me are reincarnation, and somehow there is something there still listening, or still seeing, and still taking account of the things that we want to have shared with them.
Yeah, I think it's very important to allow those comforts of seeing a dragonfly and seeing, your mom in that. Life can be so hard, and whether there is nothing after this or not, any comforts that we can allow ourselves, I think are very important.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Thank you so much for opening up and having this conversation with me, and yeah, I wish you the best. I look forward to seeing you on TV a little bit more often.
Yeah, hopefully. There's one more thing I'd like to say about grief.
Sure.
So I didn't find this. This is actually something, I'm totally stealing this from somebody posting it on Reddit. But at the beginning of it, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
But like obviously, like as time goes by, it gets like better. But like, heck, literally, like, and now it's gotten to the point where in the beginning, it's like you can see it coming, because once you've had the first few like relapses of, oh my God, this happened, you start to see where the triggers are going to come from.
Right.
So like So like I'd be like watching a Grey's Anatomy episode. I'm like, oh fuck, they're gonna kill this mom, and they kill the mom, and I know I'm just a waterworks. But now like, and so it was like, oh, I would cry, once a week, and then it was I would cry once a month, and then once every few times a year, and now it's like here and there. And it's funny when it comes up because like sometimes like it'll come times I know it's gonna come. It's like, oh, I'm watching Field of Dreams for the 8th time.
Yeah.
The second he says, Dad, do you want to have a catch? Like,
Right.
That done.
Yeah.
Just done. But like literally, I've been watching The Sopranos for the first time during quarantine.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so Tony's, spoiler alert, season 6, Tony's in the hospital and he's on a ventilator, and I could hear it, and like I'm watching it by myself last night in the dark, and like I was like, oh shit. And then like
that sound,
and then I just had this, like I had to like pause it and like have like a nice like 30-second cry, just like because it just comes. But there's this thing that I sometimes I send to a friend, because like whenever I have somebody close to me or is in a circle of mine that has lost somebody like a parent or in that kind of circle, because like when somebody dies, like the first thing everybody says is if there's anything I can do, which is a nice sentiment. But for some of these things like this, it's like it's truly something you're not going to understand until you go through it. Like there's really nothing to prepare you for the loss of a parent, or particularly God forbid if you're a parent who loses their child. Like I can't like that. Just like anytime I see anything where like a parent loses their child, it just kills me. Yeah. But this was like years after my mom had passed. I was reading Reddit one day, and somebody was talking about grief, and they were like, there was this post that described grief, and like I read it, and like every time somebody goes through something, I kind of just clip it and I let them know like, hey, this is what it's going to be like. And so it's this guy, old guy, I don't know what he was, but this is what he says on grief. It's a Reddit post by Gary Sully, 1986 or something, or maybe it was originally by G Snow on Reddit. I don't know. Reddit is obviously a terrible place a lot of the time, but they do have some gems from time to time. But the thread was just, my friend just died, I don't know what to do. And this guy says, all right, here goes. I'm old. What that means is I've survived so far. A lot of people I've known and loved have gone. I've lost friends, best friends. I wish you could say that you get used to people dying. I never did. I don't want to. It tears a hole through me whenever somebody I love dies, no matter the circumstances. But I don't want it to not matter. I don't want it to be something that just passes. My scars are a testament to the love and relationship that I've had for and with that person. If the scar is deep, so is the love. So be it. Scar is a testament to a life. As for grief, this is the thing that really stuck with me. As for grief, you'll find it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning with wreckage all around you. Everything floating around you reminds you of the beauty and magnificence of the ship that was and is no more. And all you can do is float. You find some piece of the wreckage and you hang on for a while. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe it's a happy memory or a photograph. Maybe it's someone who is also floating. For a while, all you can do is float. Stay alive. In the beginning, the waves are 100 feet tall, and they crash over you without mercy. They come 10 seconds apart, and you don't even get time to catch your breath. All you can do is hang on and float. After a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, you'll find the waves are still 100 feet tall, but they come further apart. When they come, they still crash over you and wipe you out. But in between, you can breathe. You can function. You never know what's going to trigger the grief. It might be a song, a picture, a street intersection, the smell of a cup of coffee. It can be just about anything, and the waves come crashing. But in between waves, there is life. Somewhere down the line, and it's different for everybody, you find that the waves are only 80 feet tall or 50 feet tall. And while they still come, they come further apart. You can see them coming. An anniversary, birthday, Christmas, landing at an airport. You can see it coming for the most part and prepare yourself. And then it washes over you. You know that you will again come out the other side. Soaking wet, sputtering, still hanging on to some tiny piece of the wreckage, but you'll come out. Take it from an old guy. The waves never stop coming. And somehow you don't really want them to. but you'll learn that you survived them, and other waves will come and you'll survive them too. If you're lucky, you'll have lots of scars and lots of loves and lots of shipwrecks.
Wow. That's very beautiful.
I know. Every like anytime somebody like loses somebody close, like that's like the first thing I think of as what it's like to deal with that.
That might be the best description and sort of game plan or blueprint for how it describes grief, how to handle it, and why you may even miss it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're never fully letting go of someone if you're experiencing grief and remembering them.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with me. That is it's very moving.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm gonna sit with that for a minute. Oof. Well, thank you again so much for for everything, for all this, and man, weren't you just on TV there for not the?
I was just on a MTV prank show.
Did you prank somebody?
Yeah, I was part of the plant. You know, like when Dak Shepard was on Punk'd, and he was like the guy who like helped set up the. Yeah. That's
great. Well, I hope you know you're hanging in there with the quarantine and enjoying The Sopranos, and let's talk soon.
Yeah, man. Good to talk to you.
It's so beautifully written and so spot on and true. It'll space out, you know, the waves of grief, but you're never leaving the beach, so to speak, right? The waves are going to keep coming, and sometimes you may have your back turned and not realize it, and it could hurt, just like turning your back on the ocean and getting smacked down by a wave. Thank you so much to Michael Sause, and thank you for that quote and for being so open. We're going to be, I'm sure we're going to be seeing a lot more of Mike on TV. And for everyone listening, I want to mention my other podcast, That Gives Me Anxiety. You can check that out. The second season is going to come out once season 2 of Death Space Filling the Void finishes up. I'm excited for that second season and sad that Death Space is finishing season 2. You know, I recorded all of these episodes during the pandemic, most of them in Brooklyn, in the one bedroom that Jamie and I were living in. And so there's a lot of emotion tied to it. So yeah, give That Gives Me Anxiety a check or check it out. I'd also be curious to hear if you guys have any quotes that have helped you. You know, sometimes quotes can be a little bit cheesy, but other times it can be incredibly powerful. So I'd love to see quotes that have helped you in times of need. And then hopefully we can share them and help each other out. Well, thank you so much for listening. As always, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next Thursday.